Hey, it's Lonnie Watson, Maximum Force Ministries. Hey, sometimes when I'm cutting the grass, I get really inspired. I get pondering. I get thinking. Sometimes I'm listening to podcasts. Sometimes I'm just thinking. Today I was pondering some stuff. I'm still thinking about Samson because that's one of my favorite characters of the Bible, and I got wondering what was Samson's downfall? Everybody thinks it was his hair. He cuts his hair off and he loses his strength. Guess what? The strength was the straw that broke the camel's back. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Samson's demise started at an early age. Uh, the laws of the Nazarite, which was a special order that he had chosen to be involved in. No wine or strong drink, no alcohol. Couldn't touch anything dead, no touching a dead body, it was unclean. No sexual immorality. Big surprise there. Samson was a pretty much a big hoe dog. Okay, and he couldn't cut his hair, and then all of the other rules of Jewish law. And those rules of Jewish law actually were more intensified for Samson as a Nazarite under the Nazarite vow. But let's talk about one of those right for a second. If you look early on in the book of Judges, and I believe I'm going from memory here, the story of Samson covers from 13 through 16, if I'm not mistaken, of the book of Judges. One of the first things that Samson did was, it says that a young lion came out of the woods and he killed it, broke its jaw, tore it in half with his bare hands. No problem, right? He went on down to handle his business, and he came back through. And the Bible says that a swarm of bees had built a hive in the carcass of the lion. Herein lies the problem. That was a dead thing now, and he wasn't supposed to bother it. But he saw the bees living in the carcass of the lion like a hive, and it says he reached in, scooped out some honey, and ate it as he went, and then took some honey to his parents and gave it to them, but he didn't tell them where it came from because they wouldn't have ate it. They're Jews. They wouldn't have touched something dead. And we say to ourselves, now what's that got to do with me? What has that got to do with me as a modern day 2019 New Testament Christian? Let me tell you what it has to do with you. A dead body represents something that God has put his finger on in your life and said, here, this has got to go. Something he's convicted you of. Something that in your life, I'm having trouble holding my camera up here. Something in your life that is dead that you need to get rid of. Alcohol, uh, pornography. And sometimes it's sinful things, some things that are inherently sinful that nobody has any business touching. And sometimes it's things that it's not a bad thing, but God thinks that you're spending too much time on it, or maybe it doesn't have a place in your life. Uh, a lot of people have left sports for the sake of the gospel. A lot of people have left a job because God put their hand on it and said, you don't need to be doing this anymore. To continue to do that thing is to touch a dead body, is to touch a dead thing, dead works, whatever. Once you touch that thing, once you scoop into that carcass and eat, you've committed the sin of Samson. Now, let's talk about the sinful things that are dead that God's put his hand on. Let's talk about pornography, the thing that plagues 83% of Christian men if you read studies. God's put his finger on that for all of us. And he said, look, don't touch that. Keep your hands off that. Keep your eyes off that. Keep your mind off that. Get away from that. Self-pleasuring, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to get too far into this. There might be kids watching this. You were designed to have sex with your wife and nobody else. Not by yourself, if you get my drift, with your wife. Not with your girlfriend, not with your boyfriend, if that's the way you go. No, that's not what you were made for. God's put his hand on that thing and said, that's got to go. It's dead. And for you to continue in it is to scoop in honey in that dead carcass and eat it. And for you are sinning the sin of Samson. You are beginning down that road that Samson went down towards his destruction. And it could be anything then. Now, inherently sinful things, those are absolutely wrong. Things that you know are wrong for anybody. Adultery, fornication, pornography, stealing. You've been cheating on your time at work. You're fudging on your hours a little bit. God's put his hand on it and said, look, you need to quit doing that. Let me tell you something. Once God puts his hand on something dead and tells you to stop it, you are in serious peril to continue on. Serious peril. Because God is merciful. He's loving. He's long suffering. He warns us. He says, quit that thing. Because if you don't, you're going to head down that road and you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get caught. You're going to end up in trouble. You're going to end up divorced. You're going to end up in trouble with your boss for stealing time or stealing items at work or money or whatever it is. It could be anything. During hunting season, you make an idol out of hunting. You know, nothing wrong with hunting. I'm hoping to be successful this year at hunting because I suck at hunting. But guess what? If I get to the point where I make an idol out of that thing, I'm asking God to lay his hand on that thing and take it from me. Because the Bible says, God said, I will have no other gods before me. Anything that God has placed his hand on and said, you don't need this in your life anymore, that thing is dead to you. And for you to continue touching it, to continue doing it, to continue participating in it, is like Samson eating honey out of the carcass of that dead lion. And that's the first sin of Samson. I'm Lonnie Watson, and I hope you have a great evening.